You're listening to the e-commerce edition of Hello Moxie with Nicole Donnelly. In each episode, we speak with leaders in the e-commerce industry on promoting diversity in the tech sector, the latest e-commerce trends, and how B2B brands can innovate through e-commerce. Hello Moxie is sponsored by DMG Digital, a woman-owned marketing consultancy dedicated to helping B2B companies create exceptional customer experiences.
Well, go ahead. Here's our tea selection. So I'm just going to pour Robert a little glass of tea here for before we get started. So here's our selection of tea.
So this is a big decision that I have to make here. I'm going to be judged harshly on it.
We've got bedtime. Are you ready for sleep?
I am not, no.
Maybe some stress relief. Is this causing you some stress? Maybe that might help you.
No, I'm at a Magento event. I'm not stressed today.
Wow. Do you want some positive energy, or do you've already gotten enough of that?
No, I think positive energy, I could always use a little extra.
What about some Blueberry Slim Life? Do you want Blueberry Slim Life?
No, I mean, I will take the hint, but no, the positive energy sounds like exactly
good?
what I need today.
Positive energy for Robert. Okay, so we'll give you lots of that. So you know, some sweet tangerine. So
we are in the Sunshine State, so
we are
citrus.
Right. You can never have enough of that. I mean, there's nothing better than coming to Florida in the middle of February. I don't know where you're from, Robert, but
I'm originally a New Yorker, but I've lived in Florida for a long time, and so Florida citrus. If you'd like to support this effort,
we're going to give you a nice plug. All right, we love our Florida oranges. It's amazing. So, oh my goodness. Here we are. We're live. We're coming at you from Meet Magento, Florida. I love this event. This is my second time coming here to this event. I spoke last year about 5 phases of change and change management, and then we just did a workshop yesterday. It was so fun. So Robert, I would love for you to tell our listeners, who are you? And give us a little summary of who is Robert? Tell us about you. Besides the fact that you like positive energy.
Yeah.
Tell us a little more.
How long do we have? We're going to be here a few hours.
We have as long as you want, you know.
Do I get to submit my insurance so that at least you get something for this therapy session? And I'll give you some background. So I'm Robert Rand. I head up partnerships and alliances at a company called iPass.com. iPass stands for Integration Platform as a Service, and so we focus on helping, in this case, in this room, merchants to get all their key data flowing between all of their different software systems, their ERP, CRM, point of sale, e-commerce, product information management, shipping, marketing, etc. Modern platform for doing it faster, easier, more elegantly, bringing accountability to the whole process and
beautiful middleware, right?
Yeah, right.
Beautiful. We love middleware.
That's what we do. But if you're asking about me, I mean, the story goes back. I mean, I finally turned 21 this weekend.
All right, congratulations. What's it like to be 21? I haven't reached that milestone yet. I'm still 18. So tell me, what's it like to be of drinking age?
Well, it was a little rough at the bar last night. These tech conferences that who knew that a bunch of techies really knew how to throw a few back.
Oh, they do. They do.
We got to host a networking event last night over at the Davidoff Cigar Bar with one of our partners, Improntus, one of the Adobe Commerce agencies that's here at the conference. But I actually came out of that space and spent about a decade helping to build up a digital agency that specialized in design development and digital marketing. And graduated from that. We sold the agency in 2017 and exited. Thank you.
That's an exciting milestone.
Yeah, it was a wild ride, as I said, bringing brands like Swiss Gear and Invicta watches into e-commerce, being the digital agency for groups like the Florida Panthers hockey team. It was, you get all those accolades at the time, the Inc. 5000 and Google Premier Partner, and you're doing all these things. But really what you're doing, which I love connecting with all of the people at conferences like this. You're working a lot of long days and nights for organizations that want to be at the cutting edge, that want to have that latest round of technology, be part of the latest social media, and sometimes the big brand names, the well-known organizations, you're one small vendor, you're a cog in the machine, but often it's the businesses, the organizations you've never heard of, where the stories are the most interesting, where you're so integral to their organization, manufacturers and distributors, sometimes making products that, that
Run the
help
world.
all of us, get
You
through
don't
our
think about
days. And, you've never heard of them, but, sometimes they're doing a huge, volume of business, big revenue, and their needs are just as important, and the same with regional players and retailers and others along the space. And so I went from there to being involved with an integration platform and then a web hosting company for many years, and joined the team here at iPass.com about a year and a half ago.
Amazing.
And it's been a lot of fun helping build up the next.
Quite the journey. I think it's really exciting to be in the space to just see there's just constant change happening, and it's a beautiful thing. Sometimes it might feel a little bit overwhelming, but it also is just so nice. It's nice to be a part of it because it's always something new happening. It never gets old or static, right? There's always new and better ways of doing things, of helping customers, and and in the B2B space, as we see that market continuing to grow in terms of the amount of revenue that's being sold through e-commerce, and companies finally starting to adopt in the B2B space. What you're doing is so critical, because there's such a need for really solid middleware solutions for these complex B2B companies that have, big tech stack that needs to be integrated.
And I was saying to Paula a few minutes ago that when you look at these kinds of organizations, the market has evolved very rapidly. Yeah. And so they used to send out catalogs. They used to fax in orders at trade shows, as the different companies would come and place orders there. And this is all evolved that, inventory is real time, orders are flowing in more real time. They're not faxing it over. They don't want to call and have to ask what's available and when. It's all at our fingertips, and everyone is used to having that. Maybe it's instant gratification. Maybe it's just, efficiency and simplicity of, hey, you go to Amazon or whatever it may be, and 1, 2, 3, you're getting what you need. And so I think continuing to make that available and scalable even to organizations that are more complex, that is, where there's still real opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah.
Most retailers and direct to consumer and what have you, that they made the technological leap, a few years ago, certainly, during lockdowns and things when, retail brick and mortar wasn't exactly the place to go and trade shows weren't. But there's still so many markets and so many opportunities to not only further digitize but it's to optimize the experience. So I run into a lot of businesses where they're just scratching at making that user experience for the buyer what they're hoping. And so, for instance, with retail, being able to deal with the buy online, pick up in store, having gift cards that you can use in store and online, in just the same way, unifying the data, the loyalty points, same thing, that shoppers don't want to be siloed in these different data systems and what have you, that they don't understand the difference, nor should they have to. And so better democratizing that, making the technology available so you don't have to be Walmart or Target or some huge company in order to offer that kind of an experience. But I'd say the same with B2B, last week I was out at Acumatica Summit in Las Vegas, and we help integrate data with all these different ERPs, and that's a fun one. Yeah. And just seeing how organizations are trying to figure out what they can achieve, and almost sometimes they don't always fully embrace until they're dealing with the headaches that come along with it, that they're now data companies, and that their data and being able to deal with how they're handling products, how they're handling orders, how they're handling customers across channels, across systems has become part of the lifeblood of growth and success. And sometimes it's as simple as getting the point of sale or ERP or whatever other software communicating with the marketing stack. And so you can send email and SMS and what have you. Based on not only what did they buy in e-commerce, they're omni-channel.
Often wherever they're buying, it may not be. That's so important. Well, I'd love to learn more about you've been in the e-commerce space for quite a while. So our platform is really all about how can we empower women to speak up more, use their voices, and what have you seen shift over the last, I don't know, however long you've been in the industry in terms of women's role in tech? Because it's been pretty male dominated, especially in the e-commerce space. Have you noticed a shift there, first of all, as my first question? And what do you think men can do to be stronger allies for women so that more women speak up and move into the tech space?
So it's interesting that I remember being at the Googleplex probably closer to maybe 2015, 2016, where they brought, some of their more active partners together to talk about that. And obviously there's evolution in the years since, but one of the things that they pointed out was that even with the right programs to try to make sure that they were tapping into the complete workforce,
yes,
and getting different people involved, that if they waited until they were looking for who made it through college for different engineering at the time, it was too late. And so, they had to go back a step and say, look, let's try to, get people toward the high school level and figure out, where can we spur this interest and make sure that they're getting engaged in these programs, that they feel like it's for them, and that it's interesting, and kind of like, girls play with dolls and boys play with cars and things like that, and Legos, and from what Google shared, that didn't work either. They had to go younger. And to that very point, to basically, now you have Lego sets that appeal to a much wider range of children, and that aren't really just targeted toward boys or whatever segment. And that, I think that there's a lot of that thought process about, how do we bring this to people in a way where everybody can participate, and it's exciting and it's interesting. And so in my time in tech, I know I'm only 21 and all, but I've seen a marked shift where, you're seeing more people that have come through the educational process, more people that have started at more entry levels,
younger
and
ages.
now at this point, because they've been in these companies, now they're in a place to lead and to create their own companies and to become leaders of existing ones, and so on and so forth. And I think that for me, that a lot of it really is not forgetting that it's not just about who we're trying to hire from the available workforce, but making sure, and who we're trying to empower from the existing workforce, but trying to make sure that we're paying it forward, and we're making sure that it's very open and exciting for others, for the next generation and the next, and that some of these things take longer than we realize.
Yes, I think that's such a great point. Several of the women we interviewed today actually said they got their degrees in literature. Isn't that fascinating?
That is
and
extremely
then they
fascinating.
ended up becoming software engineers. So I found that very fascinating, that a lot of times that shift has happened later for women. And wouldn't it be more amazing, to your point, and I think we're starting to see that the more they get educated at a younger age, they may make those decisions younger, and that might make more women decide that this is a good path for them.
And I think it's also, we've seen changes. It used to be that either you were you learned on your own, that you were tinkering, or you went into a degree program and spent a lot of time and effort to get somewhere. Now there are, there's so many online training programs. There's code camps to do these things in person. It doesn't take as long to bridge that gap and get into tech. But also, when we're thinking about tech in general, that, there is no to my knowledge, there is no major, in a university to be an e-commerce expert.
Yeah, it's true.
For a lot of these things that we're dealing with. And so you can break in different areas of, sales and account management and project management and all these things, where you can get some certifications in a reasonable amount of time. You can learn on the job in many cases, and you can get involved and keep growing and learning. And I think in many ways, you talk about, certain areas where there's lifelong learning, and medicine, things are always coming out, and we say, you're practicing medicine, it's not exactly a perfect science, that it's evolving. And I would say the same in tech, that if you aren't keeping up with what's coming down the pike and continually learning and expanding, you are eventually making yourself in many cases obsolete.
Yeah.
And so it is something where it's not always as hard to break in because there's a need for the newest skills that not everybody has yet. And I think that those are some of the things that people sometimes maybe don't realize, that there are a number of on-ramps that don't necessarily involve coming with some kind of history or pedigree, but that you can break in, and that's always exciting when it comes to technology.
So it's almost like having this mindset of like constant learning and just getting your feet wet and just jumping into things. I mean, I met with a gentleman yesterday who said that he learned how to code in Magento because he was working in-house for, I don't know, it was like some dealership, automotive dealership, and their Magento developer basically messed up the site, and then the next day decided not to come back to work, left. The site was down, and his boss came to him. He had no development expertise. His boss said, I need you to fix this website, otherwise you don't have a job. And so he basically had to figure it out. And I thought that was, and now he's like owns his own agency 15 years later. I think that's a great example for women. Just jump in and get your feet wet wherever you can. If you don't have a formal degree, that shouldn't stop you, because as we met the women we talked to earlier, they both had degrees in literature. That's nothing to do with development, right? But like, there's nothing to stop you from learning whatever, at any time, at any point.
Yeah. Some of the most prominent figures in tech never got a college degree.
Yeah.
And so because it's a space that moves fast and that appreciates that kind of ingenuity and what have you, that it's not always about a specific credential. It really is about your willingness and interest to be innovative, to work hard, and I find that it's a fun place to be as a result. That you're dealing with people that are driven, that are coming
always
to
learning.
you with something interesting. That the number of stories and case studies and that everyone is trying to do things that are exciting.
Yeah.
It's not.
And they're passionate about it, right? Like they're really passionate about innovation, which is very fun.
Yeah.
So, well, Robert, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. Yeah, and we'll catch up at the after party. Since now that you're drinking age, we can enjoy a nice drink at the after party.
Sounds good.
But
to
I'll
me.
be having a mocktail. So cheers to you.
Cheers.
Hello, Moxie. Say hello, Moxie. And
Hello, Moxie.
I have a little gift bag for you. You can take it home and give it to the women in your life. It has a book in there with stories of the women who've come on the show. So I hope you enjoy. It's been my pleasure to host you. Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Hello Moxie e-commerce edition. Thanks for joining us as we bring you the latest news in the e-commerce industry and celebrate diversity and innovation in the tech sector.